Hey guys, I'm Zach Stanley. My topic is the death penalty, but I'm not just talking about like the death penalty in general. I researched some of the issues with the death penalty, such as the extreme cost of it and potential like racial biases and other issues with it. And I'm going to go over a few of my sources that talk about a couple of these issues, but most of my focus is on just the overall price of it because it's pretty expensive. So one of the sources I found talks about like the biggest issue with the death penalty is just the overall cost. So like during the whole process, you got to hire a bunch of lawyers. There's a bunch of trials that just like drag the process along, and it stacks up, starts to get pretty expensive. So for example, in Kansas, death penalty trials cost about $400,000, while non-capital trials are only $100,000, and then in Oklahoma, capital cases are 3.2 times more expensive than non-capital. So like that there just shows you how expensive these trials cost. And then the next source I'm going to talk about is one that talks about like some of the execution methods and how they're sort of flawed. So the most common execution method is lethal injection, and there's actually been a few times where they injected the person and they didn't die, and it just became pretty painful and almost like torture for them. And this article just went on to talk about like other ways you can, or we have in the past done it. Like we used to hang people, there used to be firing squad, and many people think firing squad is like, I guess, the best way to do it because I don't know, you can't, unless you miss, you can't really mess up with that. Another source I used, this one I really liked because it was like about the death penalty in Ohio itself. So this one talked about, yeah, like I said, the death penalty in Ohio. It states that Ohio spends $16 million per year on the death penalty. And the people that wrote this, like, they're a little biased against eliminating the system, but they give a lot of good statistics. So they say a death penalty case in Ohio, start to finish, is $3 million. That's for one person. And then a non-capital case, it's less than $1 million. So that's over a $2 million difference. So it just shows how expensive it is. And then at the end of their article, so it's like I stated, it said they spend $16 million a year. They just went on to say other uses where that $16 million could go, such as hiring more police, increase in mental health funding, hire more social workers, and just giving some of that money to families of murder victims. And then the last source I'm going to talk about is from the Dayton Daily News. So this article stated that 68% of Ohioans favor the death penalty, but if life in prison is an option for that person, then the number decreases to 47%, and those numbers are from 2014. These are some of the annual costs associated with executions. $842,000 a year for attorneys, and then $1.35 million a year for other attorneys in the Ohio Public Defender's Death Penalty Division. And then they spend $2.5 million a year for defense attorneys, $3.88 million budget for public defender attorneys on capital cases, $8.3 million in prison costs for 138 death row inmates. And then they give an example of Dennis McGuire, who was a person killed on death row, and the lethal injection to him was just $50. But the bill to keep him in prison for 24 years and then like all of his trials was over $3 million, which is kind of crazy. So to relate this to topics we've gone over in class, the first one I'm going to talk about is deterrence. And as we learned in class, deterrence is the idea that the fear of punishment will cause potential wrongdoers to act within the parameters of the law. So some people think the death penalty or capital punishment is a deterrent. Others think it is not. It's kind of split. Yeah. And then another topic is the rational choice theory. So we all know what the rational choice theory is, but everyone who committed a crime that went on to death row knew, like if they killed someone, they knew what the potential punishments for their crime would be, so they knew there was a chance they could end up on death row. And would I pick this topic again? Honestly, no, because it's kind of broad, and I think in the future I would just rather research a different topic because, I don't know, just research something else a little different. Yep, all right, bye.